Have you ever looked up and thought, how did I get here? Like you're moving, you're working, even loving, but not really present. That's the subtle trap of autopilot. In this episode, we're going to expose 5 hidden signs that you're living in survival mode, plus how to break free through total release. Let's go. Here are 5 signs that you're on autopilot. Number one, you can't remember what you did yesterday. Come to think about it, I'm not sure what I did yesterday. I did shoot a video yesterday. I do recall doing that. But sometimes you're on autopilot. You have your schedule mapped out. You have your agenda for the day. And a lot of times you're just on autopilot, but you're not really creating new memories. Like you're not challenging yourself to do something different. I know I'm guilty of it. Doing exactly what I did yesterday, but not really challenging myself to have a new experience. I remember going through that at one time, and it was like, man, I don't feel any joy right now. But I remember being around somebody who challenged me. He said, Daniel, you got to make every day a new day. Every day should be a new day. What does that mean? That means challenge yourself to be happy today. What makes you happy? By doing more of what you love? Okay, that'll bring some more joy into your life. So if you love speaking, if you love coaching people, then challenge yourself to be better at doing those things. And I thought that makes a lot of sense. What it did, it woke me up to the reality that my faith should not be in what I believed yesterday alone. It should be in what I'm discovering today. And so I'm challenging you to do the same exact thing, right? So according to Psychology Today, I read this somewhere, that chronic stress reduces the brain's ability to encode memory. Yeah, that's what stress does. So when you're stressed and you're kind of just in survival mode, you pretty much get the output based on the level of everyday mundane work that you inputted. And that creates stress. You are designed for a new day. That's right. Say new day. There you go. Number 2, you react more than you respond. I know sometimes we're in our emotions, we're in our feelings, and it's like, you just say what comes to your mind. You just say what you're feeling in that moment. But the reality is, we got to be able to take a breather. Just stop for a second. Breathe in between, right? When there's no margin, no breath between inputs and outputs, that's what happens. We react. We're not thinking about what we're saying. We're operating from our emotions. We're operating from previous experiences. The subconscious mind is leading as opposed to you being consciously present right now and making decisions now, right? Number 3, you say yes when you really meant no. I don't know about you. I'm really guilty of saying yes when I meant no. A lot of times we put ourselves in positions to please people. We really don't want to say yes. Someone says, can you stop by? Just stop by. You had a really long day. Well, this Saturday, there's this big event, and you've been going to events or parties for the last 5 weeks straight. And because you're in habit mode, you're not really stopping to take care of yourself. And I'm guilty of it. I mean, I say yes because I'm kind of like on autopilot. On autopilot, I've said yes several times, and I really, really meant no. So that's another sign that you're on autopilot, right? Here's another one. You feel emotionally flat, right? Or just overly emotional. There are times when you're just numb. You're not feeling anything, or either you're not feeling anything or you're just like crying. I remember being in those situations like, what is wrong with me right now? Like, what's going on in my body right now that makes me like this? Typically it's because you're on autopilot. You're doing so much of the same thing that you're bored. We weren't created to be bored. We were created to create new adventure. We were created to, be disciplined, and I would say create some kind of pattern in your life. I'm not saying just, every day something should change every single day. You got to have some kind of pattern in your life. You got to leave some trails for other people to follow, right? I get that. There needs to be some discipline in your life. But here's the reality, if there's no discipline and it's just like you jump from one thing to the next thing, trying something new every day because you're a creative and nothing's really sticking. Like, what are you grounded on? And so what happens is you eventually become overly emotional when you look back and you realize there's nothing there. There's nothing really there. There's nothing substantiated. There's nothing that's fulfilling, right? And so you become overly emotional. And I'm not saying that's the only reason, right? We become over emotional for various reasons. Different things cause us to be emotional. Different things cause us to be emotionally flat. It can be health related. It could be just, life, right? Here's another one. You're always busy, but rarely fulfilled. Kind of like what I just talked about. Just being busy, always active, seeking, trying to find something when really it's good to just stop, take a deep breath, and even though you have tasks, you got this task list, right? You got this to-do list. It has to be done. But the problem is a lot of times we ignore that spirit whisper, that whisper in our spirit rather, that's trying to find meaning for your life. It's trying to help you discover meaning for your life. And it's a whisper. It's like, but we're not listening because we're overwhelmed with life. We're busy. And sometimes we equate busy to productivity, and that's not necessarily true. Here's one of the things I like to share with you, right? I have this framework that I've learned. It's called RISE, right? And it's RISE so that you can break free from this crazy, mundane activity that makes you feel like you're not going anywhere, right? So number one, you got to first recognize the pattern, right? Awareness is your first breakthrough. And I like to tell myself and other people I work with, including my family, that when you become aware, they said knowing is half the battle. But once you become aware, you now are responsible for being intentional about it. You're responsible to do something different. Like if you know that you're not happy, and if you know that what you've been doing isn't really getting you anywhere, then what are you going to do different? I mean, if you're trying to be perfect, that's called procrastination. You have to release every day. You have to release even when you're working on something and you're trying to get to a certain place in life. You got to recognize that in order for you to get a breakthrough, you got to be able to push through. When you push through new barriers. You challenge yourself to grow. They said people like novelty. That's one of the motivating factors for humans. And they also say that we like challenge, right? But novelty sometimes can create a microwave type mentality. But when you challenge yourself, there's a reward, which is delayed gratification, that's even more fulfilling. Number two, you got to interrupt it. What does that mean? Change your physical environment or routine. You got to change your physical environment or routine. Sometimes you just got to get away from certain people. Not everybody's going to serve you well. In order to gain more wisdom, insight, and be able to grow in that spiritual and mental maturity that you need in order to be successful in life, to be the husband or wife you really want to be for somebody, to be the leader that you want to be for the organization or the people that you want to leave, including your own family, you have got to change your environment sometimes. If the people that you're around or the information that you're paying attention to doesn't serve you in that direction, then something must change. Here's another one. You got to shift perspective. It's tied to that last point I just made. What would your future self say to you now? Would it say, hey, get your butt in gear because look what you have right here now. Because you made the right choice, look where we are now. Or would your future self say, well, you kept doing what you've been doing, and this is where we are. Our dreams have faded away. The people that we were sent to serve did not get what they needed from us. Here's another one. You got to elevate your input. You got to surround yourself with people, habits and conversations that lift your vision, right? Are you reading anything? At least listening to audibles, right? Are you spending time on, social media and your algorithm has a bunch of silly stuff on it, right? I'm not saying that I don't watch a little social media here and there. I love watching some of those funny videos, but I do know at the end of the day, I'm more focused on where I want to be in life. I'm more focused on making sure I'm an example because there are other people that are following me. There's 5 of them right here, that watch me, whether it's closely or from afar, and those are my children, right? I'm responsible to be the best that I can and to position myself so that they can win. My wife once told me, she says, if you really want your sons to be great, go ahead and achieve greatness. And that challenged me. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right, babe. You're absolutely right, babe. I'm going for it. Here's a Harvard study. 47% of our day is spent just thinking about, something other than what we're supposed to be doing. I remember being at the park with my kids and being distracted. I'm supposed to be at the park with my children, focusing on them, having a good time with them. And then, somebody at the park, you see another adult, and then you start talking to that person. Or maybe you get on your phone and you get distracted and you start thinking about work or something that you're working on project-wise. And then all of a sudden you hear a scream, ah, somebody's fallen, somebody's gotten hurt. Usually I get like a warning sign when they were kids, right? When they were small. And that was like it was like the shot was fired. Hey, you better focus, because the moment you shift your mind, shift your focus in the wrong direction for too long, things start to happen and it doesn't work in anybody's favor. So that's something that we need to be mindful of. All right. Here's another one. Stress-related absenteeism has cost the United States, or U.S. businesses in the United States, over $300 billion annually. And you know where it comes from? Just people being burnt out, just exhausted. The brain, the stress, the increases of cortisol hormones into the body that don't serve us well, that makes us sick long term. Makes us lose our hair and have hypertension and diabetes and strokes and, cancer, all of these things that show up in our body because we're suppressing our emotions. It increases heart disease, right? It's no good for us. But let me tell you something. Autopilot is really the opposite of total release, right? Total release is basically, it's the opposite of what it is. Let me just say it that way. It flows from clarity. Total release flows from clarity. It flows from being present. It flows from being in alignment. But the other one, that's controlled by fear. It's controlled by routine. It's controlled by, people pleasing. It's controlled by just stay in your lane, the one that we want you to be in. Don't ever do anything different, right? Staying in your lane is good. But every now and then you got to venture and just kind of see what's going on different freeways, on different highways. Take a trip around the world. Go somewhere different. See, when you rise, you begin to let go of that survival mentality, right? When you rise, you start to multiply into your purpose. You get to see the fruit of your purpose. You get to see the fruit of your work. You get the chance to empower and be empowered by other people. So this week, I just challenge you. Ask yourself every single day, am I reacting or am I responding to, from a place of value? Do I even know my value? And when you struggle with that, just pause, breathe, and then choose again. Start all over. Start afresh. Do something different. This is Daniel Shorter. If this podcast episode has inspired you in any kind of way, please subscribe. We need help growing our channel. And go ahead and share it with somebody else who's on autopilot and needs to be uplifted. Again, I'm Daniel Shorter with the Total Release Podcast. God bless.